Welcome to Channel 24. My name is Nataliia Lutsenko, and my evening guest today, as usual, Michael Sheitelman, political analyst. Michael, good evening.
Good evening, Natalia.
So, just a quick reminder to everyone, please subscribe on my channel, on this channel, and on my channel, Not Just Politics, and to the channel of Michael Sheitelman for those who knows Russian. So, Michael, I see you today in quite an interesting outfit, a cap. This is for the first time you're in a cap. What does it mean?
Oh, that's not the first time. Usually it's winter. We have no heating systems in Kiev after the Russian attacks. So usually I appear in caps. But today we have another reason. Today it is the day of starting World Cup, the event which take place only once in 4 years. But for my sorrow, it is the second World Cup during our full-scale war between Russia and Ukraine. Second World Cup, just to understand the scale of our war. The war started before World Cup in Qatar, 2022, and now it continues till this World Cup. And we will see what about next World Cup in Spain, Morocco, and Portugal in 4 years. Also, maybe we will meet one another at the same time of war and the new World Cup. But today we are a little bit celebrating the very important worldwide event, and event of friendship, event of sport, event of something which became to replace wars. The generally sport, and especially sport like that, the global World Cups, it is something which should replace the war. And it is very, very sad situation that we have war and the World Cup simultaneously.
Okay, that one I understood, Michael. But I also wanted to, add to the beginning of our conversation a very good news for Ukraine is that this night, Ukrainian army hit 4 bridges in Crimea, occupied by Russia 12 years ago. And there was a bridges and supply routes that are very necessary for Russia. What do you think of all of it? Can Crimea become a real, logistical problem for Moscow at this point?
It became a logistical problem, not only Crimea. It means that Crimea, it is one logistical problem, and Kherson district, which is the district on the shore of Azov Sea, is the another logistical problem. We were connected one to other by 4 bridges. The Kherson district and Crimea were connected by 4 bridges between them. And all of these 4 bridges, not exactly destroyed, but they are now dysfunctional. And that started from one bridge, and afterwards, Russian forces and Russian logistic measures, they came to another bridge, and they collected a lot of cisterns with oil and army supplies. And Ukrainian army struck to this point. A lot of lorries, military lorries, they gathered together, and that was the reason why another bridges were destroyed, because a lot of fuel and a lot of armor just exploded. So now what they have first of all deficit of gasoline and another kind of fuel in Crimea itself. They have a deficit of gasoline and artillery shells in the front line, because also they can't send it through these bridges. And this is not unofficially, but the occupation administration of Kherson district, they left to Crimea from the Kherson district. When the war just started, Russians, they occupied the main city of Kherson district, which is called Kherson, obviously. Yeah, Kherson district, so it is Kherson. And the occupation administration were located in this Kherson. In November 2022, Ukrainian military forces deoccupied this city, and Russian occupation administration moved from Kherson, from the biggest city, to a small city of Skadovsk. But now this administration, the same administration, they moved back again from this region. And this is one good news. Another good news that the city major, so-called city major, because this is not the real city major. This is the chief occupation administration of Sevastopol, the one of the main cities of Crimea. He declared today to the local population that we will not have any gasoline this day because any cistern with gasoline does not arrive to Crimea. And what it means for us, it means that all of cistern, just all of them, they're destroyed by Ukrainian forces this night. And each morning we will read the same news, I believe, that each one, no one from cistern with gasoline could achieve Crimea Peninsula. So obviously that is a good news because this is one of the best way to deoccupy Crimea.
Yeah, that was my next question. So are we somehow approaching to the occupation?
Yeah, usually, the Crimea participated, this place participated in a lot of military conflicts between Russian and Ottoman Empire, between Russian Empire and British and French. By the way, British and French, they won this war. And between Soviet and Nazi Germany, and afterwards between Nazi Germany and Soviet. And each time there was almost no battle inside Crimea, inside the peninsula. Each time it was the blockade of peninsula. Logistical blockade was the only way to stop the supply. And when you stop the supply, so the locals, they just can't stay. They don't have any manufacturing. They couldn't, for example, to supply water. They couldn't produce oil themselves. They don't have any oil origins, etc. So if we really stop the logistic, so this is the reason to Russians just to leave that from the military point of view. And if the army leaves, so obviously Ukraine will come and supply itself the everything to the civil population.
Do we see right now that a lot of Russians are uh, running away from Peninsula?
Yeah, we see it in some shorts, threads, in some videos in Facebook, but I can't say that is the massive living. That is just eventually somebody leaves the peninsula. This is, by the way, like civil occupants. This is not military stuff. I mean, this is the people who come to populate peninsula after a lot of Ukrainians left it after the occupation, and they're here against the international law. It is, by the way, banned to remove the Russian population to occupation territory. This is against the Geneva laws of international occupation. And these people just started to leave. They started to leave. But we could see it from the very fresh history of the end of 20th century. Then a lot of Russian occupation, civil occupator. I don't know if we have this terminology, but civil occupators, they left, for example, Baltic states. A lot of them left the Baltic states after the Baltic states was deoccupied by the collapse of Soviet Union. So in this particular case, obviously, civil Russians, they will not stay. They will not stay in Crimea because they committed crime by Ukrainian law, and according to this crime, they should spend 8 years in the jail because they crossed the border illegally and they illegally stayed in Crimea. So I believe they will not wait for Ukrainian forces. They will leave. They will leave before Russian army leave the Crimea. So now we are just at the beginning of this process. And if it is not objective, but if Ukrainian army just could keep the pace about this middle strikes and deep strikes during this summer, so to the end of this summer, we will see the exodus of Russians from the peninsula.
So no touristic season in Crimea.
No, by the way, the locals, they still have an advertisement of the tourism, and they also offer some hot sales. For example, if you rent an apartment or the room in the hotel for 3 nights, you receive 10 liters of gasoline. As a present, you receive 10 liters of gasoline to have the possibility to leave after your arrest, to leave this peninsula. Because other way, if you are not the citizen of Crimea, you don't have any possibility legally buy gasoline. The locals, they receive it from their offices, for example, with 10 liters of gasoline per day, but not the people who came to as a tourist. They have no possibility to buy that.
Interesting. What a gift. And how do you think the military, how do they will report to Putin, I mean military generals, about everything happening in Crimea? What do they tell to him? Will they still try to convince him that everything is under control?
No, these people who stay at Crimea, they are not the same people who attacks our Ukrainian forces on the front line. This is far away from front line. Crimea Peninsula is far away from front line. It is 150 kilometers from front line. So that is very new situation for them. Because usually people who reports is the people from the front line who reports about this is the number of attacks we used, this is the number of military personnel we lost at these attacks, for example, and this is the number of shells we used and tanks we lost, etc., etc., etc. But from the Crimea Peninsula, the military personnel who stays at the military peninsula, and this is tens of thousands of Russian soldiers, they don't participate in the battles. They just stay. They send drones, for example. They send missiles, but not participate physically in battles. So this is very interesting. What is the criteria? I don't know, by the way. What is the criteria to report? Because if you are on front line, so you have a list of criteria to report. But when you just stay in Crimea, so from a formal point of view, you don't have any enemy. You don't have any enemy. So what is the fight? You don't have enemy. But now, all of these 4 years or more, 12 years, they stayed at Crimea and they did not participate in any battles. But now we have a battle in the sky. Each night we have a huge battle in the sky. Today, for example, Ukraine sent more than 300 drones to Crimea. And this is like the real war, real Star Wars in the sky of Crimea. So this is a totally new situation, I believe, and it will be the first time when Putin will call somebody from generals from Crimea to report, because this is like the new front line.
So this is the new front line. And how did you meet our successful operation with our flamingos a few days ago? I mean, it's going to be a few days ago when the interview going to be published.
Well,
1,000 kilometers from the border.
Yeah, and Flamingo, it is important to mention what is that Flamingo. Flamingo is the cruise missiles of Ukrainian production, totally original. I mean, 100% of these missiles, of the details of these missiles, produced inside Ukraine. And this is not some American or European. And this is the first cruise missiles produced by Ukrainians. And the first attempts to use that, it was at autumn, but mostly it was unsuccessful because of, our military forces. They just tried that, how to use that, what is the tactics of using that, how you build the attack together between cruise missiles and drones and big drones. And now, in last attacks, I could see that the Ukrainian army studied the lessons, and our soldiers, they understood what is the best way to use these missiles, and they used that not exactly against the places there, for example, the oil refineries. We don't use these missiles against oil refineries. Against oil refineries, more effective is to use drones, but it uses that against the military production, and for example, this time it was the manufacturing of some electronic equipment for ballistic missiles. In Chuvashia, Cheboksary, which is really about 1,000 kilometers, between 500 and 1,000 kilometers from Ukrainian border. And we could see the result, because when you send the missile with 1,100 kilo of nitro, which is 10 times more than in biggest drone. So you also receive the best result when the huge buildings, they totally destroyed. And this is the brilliant result. And also we have the first time when we have a footage from this flight of this missile over the city, and we could see that it flies on the high less than 100 meters, which means that our missiles now, they are very modern, and this is the new way to attack on the very, very low way, low let's say trajectory, which means that Russian counter missile system, they are not effective against our missiles. So yes, this is the big new result, and we are waiting for ballistic missiles, which were announced for this summer or at maximum to next autumn.
To next autumn. You know what is sad, Michael? That Putin, this is so far the worst year for a Russian dictator since the full-scale invasion. Everybody is saying that in international media. And unfortunately, I think Putin will never ever understand that. You know, he's so delusional that he cannot accept that everything is so bad.
Well, we could compare it with Adolf Hitler, for example, the Führer of Nazi Germany. Till the last of his days, he did not understand that he lost the war, obviously. He believed in some magic weapon, for example, or he believed that some his divisions, they just will come to save Nazi army inside Berlin. Or we could compare it with Joseph Goebbels, who is the head of Nazi propaganda. I read his diary, and in his diary, in the very, very last of his days, he absolutely believe in victory. And this is diary. This is something private. This is not about his public speeches. It doesn't mean that he just on public was optimistic. No, no, no. He wrote it in his diary, but he wrote it in his diary till the last of his day. And on this day, he killed 7 of his children, killed his wife, his dog, and himself. So, that will be also the end, some model of the Putin's end. Till the last day, he will believe that he is winning. And this is the reason why all the negotiation with Putin is de facto senseless. Yeah, it has no hope for the peace because he believes in alternative reality. By the way, this is not only our version of Mr. Putin, but Angela Merkel, who was Chancellor of Germany before the full-scale war, she said that after the meeting with Putin, she said he lives in his alternative reality. And now we should believe, we should remember this sentence from Angela Merkel and believe in that.
Well, I hope this alternative reality will play a bad joke to Russian dictators somehow, that it's going to set him up in some way. Michael, I was reading Russian propaganda that for tomorrow, there is a cancellation of a celebration of a Russian Day on the Red Square for the first time in 23 years, I guess.
Exactly.
Yeah, what is that about? Is that somehow connected to the 9th of May parade? What is
Yes,
the...
yes, and not only. Uh, this year, they canceled all the big celebrations. They canceled the celebration of Crimea occupation. We celebrated it during 12 years. Each year, it was the big celebration on Luzhniki, which is the main stadium in Moscow. And Putin personally participated in this event 12 years. And this year, it was just canceled. Also, were canceled any celebrations inside Crimea Peninsula about the occupation of Crimea Peninsula. About the parade of May 9th, they did not cancel the parade itself, but they canceled the participation of military machines in that. So only soldiers participated, but not tanks, not any missiles, etc. And also, at the day of Russian parade on May 9th, Russia received the permission from Ukrainian president, from President Zelensky, for this parade. They asked from President of United States, President Trump, they asked to ask Zelensky for this permission, and Zelensky gave this permission, and very for very limited time. He also said that it is only for 2 hours. You could make your parrot during 2 hours, and Russians do that during 1 hour and 51 minutes. Yeah. By the way, in previous parrots it was very long, longer than this time. But on June 12th, they have the Day of Russia, which is something instead of Independence Day. Russia is still not independent country, so they celebrate something like quasi Independence Day, which is called the Day of Russia. And each year during 23 years they celebrated that on the Red Square near the Kremlin, and Putin personally participated in this celebration. But we could see that during last year Putin is avoiding to participate in any event which is in the open air. The parrot is the only example when Putin participated in something which happened on the open air. In the close premises, he could participate, because in close premises, you will not receive immediately FPV drone, and you will have some couple of minutes to go to shelter, but not on the open air. So Putin does not participate in any open airs. By the way, more on that. This week, some Russian opposition outlets, they published the statistics about Putin's visits during this year. And during the first half of this year, Putin never left so-called capitals cities of Russia. Moscow is official capital city, and St. Petersburg, usually they mention that as a second capital or culture capital. So President Putin, during half a year, never left these two cities. He left it to abroad, to China, for example, but not to another regions of Russian Federation. Russian Federation has 83 regions, 83. And during half a year, Putin never visited no one of these regions except of capital cities. And comparing to the previous year, for example, in 2025, in first half of 2025, he visited 8 regions. In 2024, he visited 14 regions. Now 0. So he is really on fear. He is really had a belief in risk to be killed by Ukrainian drones, or to be killed by the drones or some another technical measures of his enemies inside Russia. I don't know exactly what is his most important fear.
Michael, now the Russia's war in Ukraine is now longer than the World War One, and we kind of passed this I don't know, a milestone, a moment when everything should have changed. How would you see the next chapter in this war?
Next chapter is World War II, for my sorrow. Yeah, because we have more than not celebrated, but marked at least the term of so-called, in Russia they don't use the World War II. They use something like Homeland War of Russian something. I don't remember exact the name, but this year continued 1,418 days. Our war is 1,568 days. So we overcome first we overcome this war, afterwards World War One, and the next milestone is World War Two. For my sorrow, because I can't believe that this war will end during the foreseen months, let's say, because the only reason to stop this war, and the only way to stop this war, is to remove President Putin from the from the position of president of Russian Federation. This is the only way. I don't believe in any peace formulas or any peace negotiations. And we have now this week, by the way, we have a new initiative of European countries, the new plan. If Mr. Witkov plan had 28 points, so European plan had 5 points, but you could have 1 point or 5 point or 121 point. When we see Putin as a president of Russian Federation, we will never have a peace in this part of the world.
Speaking about Europeans, again, Giorgia Meloni said that Europe has to put one single representative for possible peace talks with Russia. Michael, why do we see during the last weeks or even months this, I don't know, unstable, hot and cold approach from Europe?
Yeah. First, United States, they left the scene and they left it empty. They said, no, 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 we don't participate in any negotiation, not with Russia and not with Ukraine. And this is the quote from Marco Rubio. So now the scene is empty and Europe does not understand what exactly the next step. They finance our war, they supply the weapon. Yeah, that's clear. But what is the criteria? What is the goal of this war? And the meeting of this week in London between British, German, French, and Ukrainian president, this meeting was to formulate what is our current goal in this war. And these 5 points, this is not only peace plan, but simultaneously this is our goals of this war. So it is, we could achieve that or by peace agreement with Putin or by military way. It doesn't matter. Now, during last months or more, Europeans, they discussed who could represent Europe in the conversation with Russian Federation. But the foreign minister of Russian Federation, Mr. Lavrov, he said Europe could not bring any surprise. We don't see any person who could negotiate with us, not in Britain, not in Germany, not in France, and especially not the Finnish president, Mr. Stubb. He also could not be the person who could negotiate with us. So Russians were not ready to any European negotiator. And this is the reason why the official authorities of Europe, I mean Ursula von der Leyen and Kaja Kallas, they said last week that we stopped to try to organize any negotiation with Russian Federation because we don't see any serious attempt from Russia to stop this war. And this is the current situation. Okay, we have a peace plan on the table. This peace plan is ready. But this plan, as so-called the letter of President Zelensky to President Putin, was sent to President Putin. And we have an answer from President Putin. No, 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 we will continue the war. We don't want any peace agreement. Yeah. So what we should to negotiate? This is not clear what to negotiate with them. By the way, first 3 years of this war, nobody negotiated with Putin. And only President Trump started this tradition to negotiate with Putin. And maybe this is bad tradition to negotiate. Maybe now we could try another way. Only strike on Russia, only strike on Russian forces, and not to negotiate just not anything till they will come and ask for peace and not us.
I do remember when Trump was saying, you know why Putin is so bad and sad? Because nobody's talking to him, because he's isolated. And I'm going to call him and I'm going to invite him to Anchorage, and then everything will change. Michael, just a final question. I see the information from Baltic countries' intelligence and a lot of newspapers right now, media outlets, writing that Russia is building a military base next to Finnish border, and approximately 100,000 soldiers or even more could potentially be there. And I kind of believe this is true, but I mean, do they have any capacity to do so?
This is true. and they have a capacity because only 700,000 Russians there on front line with Ukraine, and the total number of Russian army is more than 2 million. So they have a spare personnel. This is not exactly personnel who could participate in fights because they are not qualified personnel, but some personnel they have first. Second, 100,000, it is not big deal. This is not big number. And this is not obviously not enough for starting a war against NATO. When they started a war against Ukraine, we had 250,000 military personnel, and it appeared that it is totally not enough. We just lost all of the battles at the first days of this war. They lost to Ukrainians. So to start the campaign against Finland, they should have about 500,000 at least. So yes, they built that, but the good news that Finland during these last 4 years they built seven defense lines on the border between Russia and Finland. They totally closed the border between Russia and Finland, and it is closed during last 2 years about, and nobody could cross that. And this is the front line now this is the front line and not just the state border. So Finland is ready, and Finland not only the NATO member, but also they have very prepared Finland army and absolutely ready Sweden army on the border and American soldiers nearby.
So then I don't know why Russians are doing that, other than just,
They have a
I
plan to start the war. They have a plan to start the war
they
anyway.
do
Yeah.
with Europe.
That is
After,
the question
I
of
mean,
time.
in
It's
this,
a question of time. What happens earlier? Russians start a war, or somebody remove Putin from the presidency in Russian Federation. If they don't remove Putin, or we don't remove Putin, so Russia they will start a war against Europe. That's it. That's a plan.
that's a plan simultaneously with a war in Ukraine
Yes.
or after.
No,
So,
we have war in Ukraine. Yes, obviously. Yeah, yeah.
well, I hope they're ready, everybody. But I hope it's not going to happen and we can neutralize Putin before that. Michael, thank you so much for your time, for your insights. It's always a pleasure for me. Thank you.
Thank you, Natalie. Bye.